Hey there survivors, Sprinkles here and welcome to Lost Colony. This map is definitely one of the hardest I've ever played. Between the ice cold tundra that is the map and the constant need to be on my toes with predators around every corner, I found myself losing an entire weekend to this madness. So I hope you all are ready for a story, because here's how I eventually stopped dying and started surviving in Lost Colony. Our journey starts like many others, I'm sure, as we first wanted to stop and see the sights in the big city, the Red Citadel, and just see how big it actually was. And to no one's surprise,
you'll keep dying too.
However, not due to enemies, but rather fucking freezing. In fact, the NPCs seem dominantly chill, even if somewhat terrifying, roaming around on menacing mounts and speaking in strange tongues that my wife could dominantly hear because I did not have the ability to hear. We tried our best to survive in the city. The only thing that really stopped us was the fact that we had no rocks, no matter where we scoured the ground, and the constant freezing to death. So we did eventually decide to look for land elsewhere, which led us to die a lot. And they've already noticed me. Somehow, during all the deaths, I managed to find my first Veilwind. Which was great because it worked as bait while I ran around trying to get myself settled. Fuck. No. No. I'm not going out this way. No. Ooh. Your sacrifice will be remembered. The snack that fights back Veilwinds. Which leads me to my first attempt at a base and something that I can only describe as Aberration Hot Springs. Which is weird to say because even though the plant life and crystals remind me of Aberration, there were sadly no creatures from there. Even as of recording this, I've yet to spot any, which is odd when you remember it did crash land in the area. Sidetracks aside, while working on the building my base in this area, I found a nice level 112 Veilwind, which was definitely a great help going forward. Sorry other Veilwind, it's not me, it's your levels. Unfortunately, right afterwards, a level 145 Raptor found me after this, and I got very worried that I was going to lose the Veilwind, as I still had the other as a companion and incapacitated, so I couldn't change that. The first and only time I am grateful for Veilwinds being dumb and getting stuck easily throughout this entire series, because it got stuck on some rocks while attempting to follow me and didn't run into the Raptor. Unfortunately, while attempting this first build, I was murdered by a Hyenodon, and no matter where I spawned, I simply couldn't get back to the Aberration Hot Springs and decided to give up on that first attempt and start somewhere new. Which brings me to this snowy little hill, which drove me a little insane, as even when I get done with this build, you will notice that snow never leaves the inside. But I feel like I made it work in the end. Even the small parts of my base, the snow didn't touch. Got a design, I think it explains it some way, but more on that later. Now, I can be a bit of a builder, I can be a bit of a building focused player, and found myself entirely focused on getting at least the base layout and walls done entirely thatch, while keeping an eye on this Carno that was in the water, and of course it vanished. I knew it was going to come say hi. But thankfully the Veilwind understood the assignment and managed to fend it off, giving us some much needed hide, though I did need a bit more for building, so I went out with a Veilwind and murdered some critters, especially if they gave fur. Sorry, otters. With that, a forge
Their family.
And I'll do it again, there's too many, it's overpopulation, but we'll get on that later. With that, a forge was finally made. I did a lot of building with primitive tools, but now we could really start working on the base, and maybe even some tames as I set my sights on the new fur set that came with Lost Colony and making narcotics. But of course, Ark saw that things were going my way and decided to send me a friendly reminder of how rough this map was going to be, with a direwolf charging at my base. Thankfully, between the Veilwind and sheer luck from putting points in my health, I barely survived the encounter. Barely. After this experience, I decided to spend the entire time converting my base to stone, which I won't bore you with because it took me forever, because I did it all on foot, but it was something I personally enjoyed building, so I had no problem doing that. However, after finishing the conversion, what I had placed down... However, after finishing the conversion, what I had placed down, I decided to take the narcotics I had and go out hunting for my first legitimate tame. Fail ones are nice, but you literally just walk up to it. And I wanted to hunt a dame. Hunt a dame. Hunt a tame. I can't talk. Then I ran across a red iguanodon, which, while not horribly powerful, their speed and ability to turn berries into seed was a treasure. So I Stockholm syndromed him and named him McQueen. Ka-chow! And I took him home. Thus upping my berry game, at the very least making narcotics slightly easier to do. While working on the base, I had some rather funny-ish encounters and tames that I figured I'd cover during this time lapse. First was this high-level baby alcoholic that I found, who unfortunately didn't make it because a fucking bison decided no babies and fucking killed it. We tried to fight it off, but unfortunately I got murdered in the process. Thankfully, by the time I got back, McQueen had handled it, and it was dead and gone. Also, I got a frog, but I didn't record it. I couldn't find any footage of this, so that was unfortunate. But I got a little frogger here. Then that night we were wandering around. A Doedicurus was absolutely getting its ass beat by some otters, which are their own nightmare fuel. I'll cover later. Like, I handled the situation though, because in no way was I going to pass up on all that angry fur in front of me. Then I found a purely red raptor. After I tamed it, I named it Dracula, which I feel like is very appropriate for this map. Then later on, I found this beautiful high-level Megatherium, which as a side note is my favorite dino. We are similarly shaped, so I feel a kinship. However, my ass was clenching hard as an alpha decided it wanted to roam nearby as I was in the process of taming it. So I literally had to distance myself and pray that it stayed away long enough for the Megatherium to get tamed before to get it back to base. Thankfully, it wandered off enough and bada bing, bada boom, I got a level 191 Megatherium, which is great because I'll probably be using them for my main army. I'm not gonna lie. Now comes the fun part. As I was roaming on my new Megatherium, I noticed something that made me very nervous, that I had at least 2 alphas roaming near my base. I decided to risk it, and I went after him on my Megatherium, and it worked out because it turned out to be very low-level alpha, so that was great. But then the other one went MIA, and I wasn't going to complain. I was just hoping it was dead or got far off somewhere. I proceeded to hunt my next Megatherium, which would thankfully be the breeding partner that I needed, and just to get the army up and started. Of course, I knock it out, and I'm roaming around to see if I can find some prime meat, and there's the other alpha. Thankfully, it was also low level. So I gave it prime meat for the tame after murdering that bastard, which, level 149, it's not the worst, not the best, and that'll work very great, at least the breeding. But then, of course, I hop on the next day to just go around and, like, start working on the breeding process, and there's an process! Ah!
Process? I thought you were trying to say the breeding posse.
Yeah, breeding posse, yeah. Oh, but of course, there was a level 50 alpha outside my base. It was literally outside my gate door, so I had to fucking open one side of my wall, sneak my Megatherium out, sneak around my base, and murder its ass. So 3 alphas around my base within the course of a fucking weekend. After much grinding though, here we are. This is the final production of my base. I decided to not show you guys all the details I was adding, so I wanted to show them off during the final build showcase, which should speak for itself. I showed my wife this build, and she says it gives like a survival horror game kind of vibe. So, I didn't mean... A murder cabinet, which I didn't even realize I was doing, but considering I was listening to like a horror story podcast called Creepcast, I'm guessing that's what ended up influencing my build, because I just kind of was just building and having a time with that podcast blasting in my ears. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. I meant to have it out sooner, but due to things happening in life, it took a little while to get this done. But, you know, hey, new year, let's give it a shot. If y'all want to see more chaotic adventures, maybe a little less edited, maybe you like the style, leave a like and comment below and let me know. The next video, me and my wife go on a treasure hunt, and that is an adventure that you'll just have to wait and see. Thank you all so much for listening to this little short tale. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.